we are now going to explore internal family systems. So, humans in our current culture are trained to think of themselves as one unit, right? So, like, naturally, if you've never been introduced to this content, you have operated with the assumption that you are a entity, an individual of one, and that you operate in that manner. What I'm going to ask you to open up your mind to is the belief that who you are is really actually comprised of multiplicity phenomenon. The mind is subdivided by nature. Okay, I'm sorry, clinical speak, right? So, who you are is comprised of different aspects or roles. So, how is that even possible? I want for you to think about situations that you operate very differently in. So, for me, when I'm acting the role of mom, that's a different way of being than when I'm acting the role of therapist. I literally have within my mind different parts of who I am. And those different roles are units. Like they are entities on some level, right? That you can tap into and use more strategically. So I want for you to think about actually, I first need to provide you with who has influenced my understanding of internal family systems. The most influential work that I have found to be an easy read and as really clear is by Richard Schwartz. Last name is spelled SCHWARTZ. He has an amazing book about parts work and couples and how they can learn to get their parts to go along better. Anyways, I would love to talk more about that, but I'd like to stay focused. So, I want for you to notice how common the language of different parts of who you are is. And what you'll find as you learn about how internal family systems is, what you're going to find is that it has the capacity to explain so much of human behavior. I have come to appreciate the realness of this psychotherapy. And you know why? Because I've worked with a lot of different clients who have commonalities that there's no way my clients know each other and could have parts that are so similar. So when you provide the psychotherapy and you have a client who is open to the process, as a clinician, what you're going to find is that different clients have parts. So when you introduce these concepts, clients who have never even heard of it, people from very different walks of life, can jive with it, and it can help a person understand why they are the way they are. Providing someone with an explanation and informing them, providing them with the education, the content, the information they need to, become more of a proactive change agent. Psychotherapy is about learning and growing. Knowledge is power. The more you understand, the more you have the capacity to really understand what's occurring. Okay. You may have noticed that parts is a way of talking that is very natural. So, for example, you will hear someone say, "A part of me really doesn't like that idea," or "I want for you to think of a time that different parts of who you are were in conflict with each other." So, for example, my part of self that is a rebellious teenager and likes to not stay home and go out with friends and get giggly, that part at times isn't, taking into consideration the part of me that is a mom and is saying, your priority is not fun. Your priority is your children. And leaving and going out to a party is not responsible. And so I want for you to notice that the different roles, the different hats that you wear in your life come with different perspectives. So once you understand the building blocks of your personality structure and the different roles that you play, what you can do is create more harmony within your internal system so that there's less conflict, there's less back and forth, there's less, oh my God, I'm so unhappy with that thing I did last night, right? Because if all the different parts of who you are working together, they're more likely to have collaborated on some level so that you don't have to feel guilty or shameful, right? So if the part of me that is a mom expressed to the part of me that is a rebellious teenager, that, she validates what it's like to be a young person, right? That can be powerful. The different roles that you play can take shape and form. I'm going to have you engage in an exercise. If you're ready for it, what I'm going to ask you to do is take a look at one part or more that want to be present for this process. A lot of clients, or all clients, I'm going to say, have guardian hearts that swiftly intervene and maintain survival through the different habits that those parts learned through experience. I want for you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel any kinks in your body release as you take a more comfortable position and notice that what you're going to do is request your personality system to open up to you and participate in therapy. Okay? Not every client's parts are going to be on board with psychotherapy, right? There's always the skeptic, right? There's always a skeptic part of who a person is that, will question, what am I really doing here? Is this effective? What is going on here? This is so crazy. A skeptic is a part of you that once you're aware of how it influences you and how at times it makes you skeptical about situations that are based on past experiences that have no bearing on your current situation. I want for you to notice that you have the opportunity to intervene with the different parts of who you are if you proceed with caution and respect. When delving into your internal worlds, I want for you to really appreciate that your psyche, your mind, I'd like for you to view it as a constellation of neural networks. Different parts of who you are comprised of neural networks that have come to run together, right? So when I'm playing mommy role, right, I have a unique capacity to be patient that is less present when I'm out with my friends and being that rebellious, carefree person. So what I'm trying to impart is that the neurons in your brain that deal with patience and are connected to that role, the beliefs that part endorses, the perspectives, the sense of safety, every part of who you are is created for some purpose. That being said, make sure that you don't create parts within yourself. I just want for you to recognize and appreciate that at times a client can, get a little creative. And sometimes this happens without their awareness. So, as a clinician, you don't want to elicit the creation of a new part in a client. That is what I've been taught. So a part of self is different than an introject. Okay? So in my mind, I can pull up an image of my mother. I can hear her voice in my mind. That isn't a part of who I am though, you know? So just because you visualize and see and tap into different influencing factors in your mind, I just want you to appreciate that a role and a part of who you are is, you know, something that you want to respect and appreciate the significance of. So, parts. How do they form? So, I learned how to be a mother primarily from the content I learned about how best to help the human psyche grow. So, my neural networks in my brain are connected with my history of training regarding child development, right? Because that's what informs that perspective. There may be other parts of you who endorse that same content. So I want for you to realize that some parts of who you are overlap on some level, or maybe similar in ways that your internal personality system may not even be explicitly aware of. Parts can operate without your awareness. They can influence you in ways that are tricky and sneaky and surprising. So, for example, I have had a part of who I am, that likes to hide my glasses, just to mess with me. So, and I know that sounds bizarre, and I probably shouldn't have said that given how soon this is, to consider that. But, the different parts of who you are there for a reason and have unique perspectives, behaviors, beliefs, values. That being said, I don't want you to create the parts of who you are and elicit and strengthen and visualize as human, so just respecting, you just want to be cautious about how you think about your parts. A phrase that I really like is all for one and one for all. What you want to do is teach your parts to work together. So, if a part of you is lonely, is there a part of you that could be there for the lonely part? So, a lot of people have a nurturing part, a part that soothes or numbs. When taking a look at your parts, you want to understand the role, the function, how they impact your life, how influential and in what ways the different parts of you are. I just want to make you aware that parts are neural networks that have been strengthened through repetition. The way our brain works is if a neural network isn't activated and it's not getting fired, as with all of our muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? On some level, okay? I'm not trying to figure out the different parts of who you are. I am simply providing you with an explanation as to why different parts of who you are can become more or less activated depending upon how your brain functions. So, if a client begins medication to address mental health issues, that is going to activate new, different neural networks in their brain. And new parts may become more influential. That client, through that medication, may become more subdued on a physical level. So the parts of their brain that are agitated aren't being activated. And so those parts that act out agitation aren't being tapped into as much. I want for you to visualize in your mind a place that you are going to utilize to facilitate new understandings. A place where the different parts and roles that you act in, a place where they can meet each other, and a place where respect is a rule of thumb. If there are parts of who you are that are verbally abusive and degrading, I want for you to ask within your own mind, as you visualize this healing setting, that the different parts take their own seats at a conference table. And notice that what you are asking of your different parts is to, become more their own entity so that they're less enmeshed and they're more, they're more their own entity. What does that mean? If there's a part of you that is numbing certain realities that are so painful, I'd like for you to ask that part of you to temporarily allow for some degree of numbness to be removed. So different parts are reluctant about treatment. different parts have learned to not look at the hurtful content and to lock away the parts of who they are who are so hurtful and have learned destructive habits and are not in control of their behavior. I want for you to realize that different parts of who you are can be more or less respectful. So if a person has a guardian in their inner psyche who has acted in a way that they limited the influence of a part that was out of control, I'd like to clarify on every level that it is my fundamental belief that people are doing the best they can with the skills, tools, and assets and faculties of their mind. So I'd like for you to slow down and let your parts know that we're going to be respectful and validating in this environment, this conference table or room. So, not every part of who you are has learned about respect. Different parts of who you are formed at different ages. And those parts are developmentally operating in that time that they first became active. Significant events can create a part. Significant events have the capacity to fundamentally change the way your personality operates. So when you're meeting with parts, one of the things that you can explore with the different parts of who you are is under what settings did that part activate? And remember, it's always about survival. So the role or function each part of your psyche plays is not always of that part's choosing. So as a baby is born to parents of not their choosing, these parts of who you are, who may have behaviors that are very volatile and scary, were birthed in your mind under certain circumstances. And they're still living in that time frame. It's very amazing how different parts of who you are developmentally not adult. I want for you to think of a time when you felt like a child. I want for you to ask your mind, was that a part of me? Child parts are playful, they're fun-loving, they're developmentally immature. Once you are able to recognize parts for what they are, you can recognize them in the people around you. Internal family systems is powerful. And once you know about how to impact change and how to elicit parts within yourself and other people, you have a responsibility to not manipulate or coerce a person with this information that I'm imparting to you. My goal is to help the healing process. And there have been times that, I'm not going to lie, I elicited a part in someone to become more active and present. The part that I elicited was one that had habits that were more constructive to the situation. So I just want for you to really feel responsible and careful with this information. It is powerful. Multiplicity of mind and viewing your self system, your personality structure, as comprised of more than one aspect or part is a paradigm shift. What is a paradigm shift, right? So it's kind of like when everyone thought the world was flat, and then finally people came to completely new understanding. People are naturally inclined to be resistant to change. At times, change can be very daunting and scary. The paradigm shift that is about viewing and acknowledging the different parts of who you are are ideas and thoughts that some people are very not open to. Some people have parts of who they are that block a better understanding of the inner psyche and the fundamental influencing factors of a person's mind. I want for you to realize that that is a defense mechanism. I want to be very clear. Parts of self is a way of understanding the human condition that I have observed in every single instant, across settings, across, different client situations, to different client populations. It explains how the mind, brain, and body operate. And I just want for you to really appreciate how exciting it is to understand and really, through greater understanding, have a say in how the psyche of yourself or those around you operate. So, I am going to ask you to close your eyes. I'd like for you to take a deep, long breath. I'd like for you to visualize that healing space that we discussed previously. I would like for you to have in that therapeutic space different items that can be sources of comfort or signs of safety and structure, as much or as little as you most feel comfortable. So there's some parts who don't have the template of respect. So some people see in their mind, like bullet points of, what occurs in that therapeutic conference room. No yelling, right? No verbal abuse. And each part is expected to not join or take the driver's seat of the core self. So there's the core self. It is a state that is in the present moment, dependent upon how present a person is able to really operate. Okay, so there are some parts of who we are that their main job is to help us dissociate and make that happen quickly. So I want for you to realize that any question you ask your brain or psyche is if there's an answer resounding in your mind that you hadn't been aware of previously, that may be a part of who you are chiming in with that answer. And, some of their parts are more or less, empowering and encouraging. Sometimes a client has a part, a lot of clients have this part, a critic part, a perfectionist part that is never quite satisfied, and as a result, criticizes, as that part views perfectionism as a part of survival, a necessity. So, as you enter your psyche and encounter the different parts of who you are, I want for you to visualize and invite the different parts of who you are to also visualize. So you can do therapy with parts. You can teach your parts skills. And that's why that conference room is so important. Clinically, asking all the different parts of you to engage in therapy and invest in the process is something that you can explicitly ask of your personality system. What you are doing is getting the different parts of you actively engaged. So the different parts of who you are may be more or less aware of the present moment, and they may not participate in therapy without having been specifically invited. want for you to enter that therapeutic space that you've created. Embellish it in the ways that in your mind, body, and soul feel most conducive to facilitating the kind of growth and self-understanding that you are asking and trying to facilitate within your mind. So, you're in that therapeutic space, and there's a force field around you that prevents other parts from joining with you. If there are parts that are currently joined with you, I want for you to ask that part gently to take a seat at the conference table. As we've mentioned, there are guardian parts that may not trust therapy. And those parts will shut therapy down if you don't respect and validate their concerns. So, one of the things that you want to do is you want to constantly be checking in within a client's personality structure. You know, are there any parts that are disturbed by the idea that self-care is something that you have the right and the obligation to do for your mind, body, and soul? Are there any parts of who you are who don't believe that, you know, your core self and different parts of you should be treated in a respectful manner? So, as you meet each individual part, realize that they are so shaped by their experiences, the experiences that they were born into. And I want for you to impart to the different aspects of who you are that the lonely part is carrying that burden of loneliness so that you can continue to survive. And that burden was relieved from the other parts by the very reality that the lonely part of who you are took on that role. So what you're doing is you're creating empathy within your inner world. So the different parts of who you are may not be aware of each other. Instilling security and safety, empathy, respect, harmony within your inner world is how you're going to create collaboration and a more serene and a more stable sense of self. I'd like for you to invite the different parts of who you are to enter your therapeutic space and take on form that they are most comfortable with. And invite those parts to install a force field around them if they would feel more comfortable knowing that that layer, that boundary that separates them from one another is there. You always want to give different parts, what they need to feel safe. So, in that therapeutic space, there may be parts of you who don't want to be there. Maybe they're scared of another part of who you are. Maybe they're self-conscious, right? A self-conscious part of self. I'm sure that exists. It's kind of tied in with the critic, right? So I want for you to realize that as you facilitate healing, you always want to make sure that every part of who you are is feeling safe. And it's important that safety always be the priority. Some clients have developed parts of who they are that, due to the circumstances in which they were birthed, have a desire to end the suffering by ending their life. Tapping into parts can elicit that part. So, you don't want to go in and wreak havoc on your inner world and break the chains of that part who's been locked away because it's too dangerous and not trusted by your guardians and other parts. What I'd like for you to do is check in with your different parts. Allow for each part to introduce itself if it wants to, if it feels safe enough to do that. Allow for your parts to be present in a form that disguises their role. So, invite your parts to wear a mask. Invite your parts to sit behind a screen if that would make them feel safe enough to participate. Getting all the parts together is something that I, as a clinician, really try to incorporate in every session with my clients, because that inner harmony is fundamental to creating stability within a person's sense of who they are and how they operate, and will decrease the likelihood that they're criticizing themselves, because those parts would be working together. So the mom part won't be criticizing the teenage part and shaming and causing guilt. So inner harmony will also include feeling better about yourself and being relieved of emotions like shame and guilt that different parts can elicit or attempt to elicit in order to change how a person operates. So, this is going to conclude this segment in discussion of heart's work. I'm sorry if it seems abrupt, but just know that you are going to be embarking on this journey with me. I'm not going to abandon you once I've opened this can of worms in your mind to this new perspective. So, with that, I wish you happy healing, one way or another. I want for you to thank the different parts of you that showed up in the conference room of your mind for being there. Welcome the different parts of you to introduce themselves if they feel safe enough to do so to one another. What you'll find is that certain parts of who you are jive and click and develop this connection that greatly benefits your system. So, an inner critic may really appreciate the part that is satirical and has this sarcastic, like humorous view in life. Facilitating collaboration is a process. And the more complex your history, the more abusive those primary caregiver relationships were, or the more safe they were, will influence the fundamental building blocks of your mind. Okay, I bid you farewell. Good night.